Everyone is here. That's going to be here.
There are two people missing. Reina, Israel Reina, and
He said he was going to be here. Okay.
Do you have a quorum if you'd like to start? I think Mr. Reyna said he would be out. He couldn't make it. There's a personal issue. And we're waiting for Mr. Gutierrez. But if the commission would like to start, we can start. If you'd like to, someone would like to call the meeting to order.
Judge,
I believe we have quorum.
would you like to?
Start the meeting.
Call the meeting to order.
Call the meeting to order.
You all have any objections?
None whatsoever.
As an interim, we still have to go through the process of selection.
It's been a while since I've done this, but I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to have a formal roll call, just for the record, to make sure we know who's here. It's
Mando Cisneros.
Here.
Efraín Sánchez.
Here.
Ana Sainz.
Here.
Marco Gutierrez. Manuel R. Flores.
here.
Jesus Rodriguez.
Present.
Luis Castillo Jr.
Here.
Richard Geisler.
Here.
Israel Reina. You have a quorum. Sure.
All right. The first, the third item on the agenda is selection of the commission chair and vice chair. And I suppose we'll go first with the chair. I'll take nominations.
If I may, I would like to nominate you, Judge Flores, as chair, and simultaneously on a slate, Armando Cisneros, vice chair.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Mr. Geisler, the motion by Mr. Jesus Rodriguez. Are there any other nominations?
Yes. I'd like to nominate Mr. Efraín Sanchez for vice chair.
I think the best way to do it then, in view of the fact that there's a second nomination, are there any other nominations? Do you want to amend your first motion just to take up the matter of the chair?
All right, yes. I withdraw my original motion, and I move that Judge Flores be nominated as chair of this commission.
I second that motion.
Any objections, Mr. Geisler?
None.
Any discussion on the motion? And I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion to appoint Manuel Flores as the chairman of this commission, make known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Well, thank you very much. I'm honored. Then the next item, then I guess I'll have to continue to preside on this. The next item then is, I'll throw it open for nominations then for vice chair. Mr. Rodriguez, you had nominated
Yes,
Mr.
I move that Armando Cisneros, I nominate Armando Cisneros for vice chair, although it wouldn't hurt to have Mr. Sanchez as vice chair either, so. But I'll follow through on my original motion.
And any other nominations? I'll dispense with the second. I just want to know who's being nominated, and then we just, I guess, throw it open for a show of hands.
I repeat, I nominated
So
Efraín Sanchez.
it's going to be as between Mr. Cisneros and Efraín. Any discussion or anything you all want to say in your behalf?
No, I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
So do we need a second for either one of those nominations?
Well, actually, I did, since it's a very small body,
Okay.
being more democratic, I just wanted to just take a vote as to who are the, unless you want to recommend a different procedure.
Well, that being the case, then I decline the nomination.
The nomination.
from Detroit. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Are there any other nominations? All right, all those in favor of Mr. Efrain Sanchez as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, congratulations, sir, in my absence, which I hope won't be very often.
I'm sure it won't, Judge.
So we have those things down, then discussion with possible action to establish regular monthly meeting dates. So I'll throw it open for discussion. What are your wishes? We want to meet monthly, and when and what time?
Let me just clarify one thing I think is important to note, that the council has passed an ordinance that requires committee participation. So what that means is if you miss more than 4 regular meetings in a calendar year, you automatically forfeit your position. So for that reason, they do ask that every commission has an established meeting date at least once a month, so that way you know ahead of time whether you're going to be able to make it in light of these, regulations are pretty strict.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is it a requirement that city committees meet on a monthly basis?
A minimum monthly, no, it's only required if you have city business. In this case, you're ad
Sorry?
hoc. In this case, you're an ad hoc committee, so you would be required to meet monthly because you do have city business that's required until your charge is over. So at minimum monthly.
Because that wasn't the case until recently that this requirement was passed, because we haven't met for a year. The last time we met was in June of last year.
Right, there has to be city business. In other words, before, there wasn't a charge because there hadn't been enough commission members appointed. So I believe that's why we finally were able to do so, was because the council did not want you all to meet unless all of you were in fact appointed. And before, we had a change in council members. So I think Councilman Algalt was the last person to appoint somebody just this past month.
Yeah, recent.
So that's the reason why we didn't meet for a year, because Councilman Adgilt hadn't appointed somebody? Is that?
The commission, this particular commission or the one before last year, I believe it was this time last year, it was kind of dissolved in the sense that the recommendation was not given. So it wasn't until, I believe, a few months ago that the council, it was after this last election that the council had asked that we bring back the commission.
The council had mentioned that at the 2018 elections, after the elections, and they'd revisit making charter recommendations for putting the commission back together. After the elections, the new council member that came on board, they had to appoint people, and so that kind of took a while, and some folks left, so they had to appoint other folks, and then we had basically everyone on board, and then I think one of the commission members resigned, and that
And the council
that
asked
passed
that we not
another 2
meet
months, and so
until
eventually then
everybody's
Mr. Geiser was nominated by Councilman Algilt, and I think last month or so, and so that's where we're at right now, and so we're starting up again.
So this commission is a permanent commission now?
It's ad hoc, which means you
it's
have
2 years.
until basically 2 years. So you have until,
Yeah.
it would have 2 years, but you have basically till next November, because that's when we foresee that this will be placed on the election.
Our appointment is for 2 years?
It's ad hoc, so it's not a permanent committee. Ad hoc means you basically have a specific charge and it's not ongoing. So whatever the charge is, until that's completed, you will stay. And in this case, we foresee, again, it's going to be placed on the November 2020 ballot. So that's pretty much how long your term would be.
All right, so those issues that were brought up in June of last year are going to be brought up again before the
Yes, and
commission?
that's pretty much, I guess, where we go from here with section 6 would be, how do you want to proceed? We do have, and it's in your binder, those propositions that were voted on by council that they did want you all to consider again. But in addition to that, it's how this commission wants to proceed, whether you want to instead go through every provision of the charter, or you want to just tackle these and any additional amendments. So it just depends on how you all want to proceed.
Well, regardless of whether we go through the whole charter or not, or we just consider the proposals that were presented to us last year, that still is going to require a lot of time. So on that basis, definitely we would have to meet at least monthly. That was the problem last time because
It was a short time.
it was a 3-day deadline, and so if we're going to consider those very serious amendments to the charter, that would require plenty of time so that the public can be made aware of what is being proposed.
What I'd like to suggest, if you all are agreeable, as you know, we all have families and responsibilities and duties, and there may be illnesses, there may be times when we can't all be here. If I could suggest that we designate one day of the month without setting a date, say, every first Wednesday or every first Tuesday, whatever your wishes are, and that way, city administration will be able to post the notices and give notices. We can draft an agenda and comply with the open meetings law. And so I guess what I'm asking is for your guidance as to what your wishes are about setting an agenda on when we will meet regularly once a month. And I'll throw it open.
Judge, I think that's a very good idea. That way we can anticipate that on a certain day of the month, not date, but day, which is Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday, whatever, of the second week or the first week, whatever.
Would there be
We can
any-
always plan ahead for that.
Schedule this one.
Would there be any legal impediment to do it that way, Ms. Hale?
Yes, and that's what's recommended, that you do at least one regular meeting date a month, and then as needed, you can do special meetings, but at least those won't count against you all in the event you won't be able to make it. So it's best to pick a date now, today, if possible, that you all are available, and that this chambers is available, so that we can go ahead and put that down and reserve that for you.
So what you want is a schedule for,
A special, like I said, one day out of the month, whether it's the first Tuesday, second Tuesday, or whatever day.
will that work?
Yes, that'd be perfect.
So that appears, to me anyway, to be a more practical approach to select the day, not specific date, but rather,
Day of the week.
like Efrain says.
Like today is the
Yeah,
fourth
tentative,
Tuesday of the month.
day of the
We all-
week, yeah.
Third
okay.
Wednesday, whatever.
You can make a motion to accept the fourth Tuesday of every month that we'll meet here in council chambers, like today. If that's okay.
I like Wednesdays, any Wednesday is fine. But I'll go with whatever the majority will do. One question,
Yes, sir.
if there is no, let's say we pick whatever first or second day of the week, or the first Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day it is. But if there is no quorum on that particular day, it will not count as an absence?
It will still count.
It will still count for those people who say they will not be able to attend that meeting?
Yes, it still counts.
In other words, when the meeting's set, everyone shows up. If there's a quorum, those that showed up, and there's no quorum, they're not gonna have an absence. If there's no quorum and the people that did not show up, that will count against them.
So it's 4 absences and
Calendar year.
You're out. That's why it's important to set the date when everyone must
Yes, sir, go ahead,
meet.
Mr.
When is the commission supposed to turn in the report to the city council? So that way we can figure out, what the timeline is gonna be.
They haven't given a deadline, but in order to meet the deadlines, it would
Normally it
be-
would be around August.
Yes.
It would be August, sometime in August of
Before early election.
2020.
Of 2020?
Yes.
That's kind of where I think where everyone's looking at.
Okay.
So you can
All right,
really
so
dissect.
There's
the
ample
charter.
time then, okay, thank you.
So what are your wishes?
How about we pick a date? How about we meet every first Wednesday of the month?
That's taken.
Well, no, that one because.
All right,
it's
there's a
special.
motion.
I mean, it's canceled.
I second. I second the
If
motion.
there's a conflict,
I was just gonna say,
Oh,
right now, for next month, there is a P and Z meeting scheduled for July the 3rd. That would be July the 3rd, the first Wednesday of the month. But because there is a holiday, they normally meet Thursday. That was already scheduled for them ahead of time. But I think it would be open. Unless you'd like to select that one and another date, and then we'll let you know which one will be the affirmative date.
Well, we can
The
keep
first
it on
one.
Wednesday, except push it back if it's not, if the chamber's
It
not
meets at
available.
6 o'clock.
Third Wednesday.
The third Wednesday is open.
Yeah,
Third
in other
Wednesdays
words,
are the-
If that's
if the
okay on
first
Wednesday.
Wednesday is not available, the second Wednesday?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I don't
The
know.
third Wednesday is
The
available.
second Wednesday's ethics,
Then
so
the
it would be
third.
the third Wednesday is
Wednesday's
available.
Do you want to change it
Okay
to
with
the
you, Mr.
third
Yeah,
Wednesday then?
It seems logical, or
Third
practical.
Wednesday?
I think that's,
Y'all want to take a vote on that? Judge?
So the motion is amended to the third Wednesday of every month,
I still second the motion.
with the first meeting would be the third Wednesday in July,
Okay.
third Wednesday in July.
2019. All right.
July
That's a motion and a
17th.
second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have a schedule. Then there's an agenda item here for public comments. So I'll take up any public comments at this time.
I have a question. At what point are we going to accept the meetings, the minutes of the last meeting?
Next week.
At the next meeting.
We'll do
We have it on the agenda for the next meeting, for the last meeting. Yes, we won't have it.
We'll have
Although
both.
they are in your binder, if you want to review them, those who actually were present.
We'll have an item for approval of the last meeting's minutes and this meeting's minutes for the next week.
So there's no public comments. I do want to take the opportunity maybe to discuss some of the ideas that I have. Having had the experience of working with the original Charter Revision Committee back when Aldo Tatangelo was the mayor, I'm showing my age.
El año del caldo.
The council at that time realized, and the city attorney's office realized, that the old charter was unworkable and needed a lot of work. And so it was a work of art for that committee to go from the first item under the model city charter and came up with all the ideas of what we now know, accept as commonplace: city manager, single member districts, term limits, limitations on political activity, and there were many things that were taken up at the time. Not me personally, because I was not a member, I was just legal counsel at the time. The committee was pretty much free to discuss, and Arturo Rodriguez was a member, as I recall, pretty much free to discuss and consider what was best for the city of Laredo, and without interference from the council. There was some public comment, very limited. And I would like this Charter Revision Committee to be open to public comment, to consider the many problems that have arisen over some recent events. I remember there was an issue as to moral turpitude. This charter doesn't have a definition for what constitutes moral turpitude. And I don't know if we would be out of line, but we would need to look at some of those items. The issues with the veto power of the mayor and overriding the veto, that's still out there, and that's still a problem. And I think in many instances, city staff, directors are also very well versed in some of the problems that arise because the charter is silent or because of limitations under the charter. The most recent one that I saw was the water rate increase that gave rise to some ethics complaints. We have an opportunity to clean it up and make Laredo better. And so that's what I would like to see this commission do. And I'm generally gonna be quiet and let the public and the administration take the lead. But bear in mind that if something is not right, we need to speak up. And we need to clean this charter up the best we can for the benefit of the voters and the citizens of Laredo. So with that said, I don't know if there's any other comments any of you want to make.
If I may, I was in on that commission that rewrote the city charter completely. A little bit of history. The man in charge was Mayor Martin, and the structure of the city was exactly the opposite of what we have now. Strong mayor, councilmen elected at large, no term limits. And so all of that was changed to what we have today. That was the right thing to do, I think, in my opinion, back then. It was, support for it was almost unanimous. The council wanted it. Mayor Tatangelo wanted it. The public wanted it. I don't think there was any opposition to the changes that we brought about to the charter. But that was a long, long time ago. That was 40 years ago. And yes, we're dating ourselves. Judge Flores' father was also on the commission, and if I believe correctly, your wife was in it as well. It was the right thing to do, in our opinion, what we did back then 40 years ago, but 40 years have transpired, so things need to be brought up to date. And as far as ethics and moral turpitude and things of that nature that we may not have defined adequately back then, we have the opportunity to do it now because we face new problems that need addressing. And if we're going to have sufficient time to allow the public to come in and express their wishes as well, fine and dandy. And then whatever we recommend, once it has been, these items have been debated adequately, and the public has been given the opportunity to come in and express their opinions, then it goes to the council and they decide whether our advice is worthwhile or not. And if they decided to take it and put it on the ballot, then the voters will decide. But our job is to advise the council, because that's why this commission exists, and that's to advise the council on these matters. Our advice may be taken or not, or discarded, but we have a job to do, and I second your feelings, Judge Flores, that recent issues that have surfaced that need addressing, this might be the opportunity to put it in black and white and to not leave things vague, because I already had somebody tell me that there are things that are very vague and they need more precise definitions or clarification on these matters, because I think it's been said before that it's a matter of opinion. So it's a matter of how you interpret it. So if we can tighten up the wording, so much the better. But the media is here, and I'm addressing the media so that they can take this message to the public. The issues that will be debated here are the same issues that were presented to us a year ago, and they're serious matters that require structural changes in the city. The type of government that we've had for 40 years is being changed if we go along with recommendations here. not that I'm against change, because we completely changed what we had 40 years ago. But let the public be aware of what it is that that the council is proposing, and that whether we go along with it or not, there's serious matters that are going to affect the well-being of this community, the structure of this city for years to come.
And
Yes, sir.
yes, what I would like to know is if there's going to be a process, what process will be in place for additional recommendations besides the 25 that are here, that are coming from
Well,
the commission members.
One thing you might want to consider, since you do have sufficient time, is going, instead of just visiting first what the council has presented you, going through each section in numerical order and seeing if there's anything you want to address with regards to those, because there is a lot of other matters that require clarification and require definitions but haven't been presented by council. So you may want to just go through it provision by provision, if necessary. Not necessary, you don't have to make a change, but if you feel that there's no change necessary, you pass it and go on to the next one, since you do have sufficient time.
But does something specific has to be put on the agenda first before we can discuss it, or?
Typically, what we've done in the past when we do that is consider provisions, section 201 through to whatever, 13, and go
So
that
you
way.
address
Okay.
those sections of the.
Take it in chunks and
the
then-
next meeting we'll
Right.
do
Anything
another
that falls
section.
under those provisions are
Exactly.
discussed, okay,
Correct.
thank you,
that answer your question?
yes.
Anything else from anyone? The next item is the review of the proposed changes to the Laredo City Charter as proposed by City Council with possible action and any other matters incident thereto. Now, I don't know what your feelings are. I'm new, this is my first meeting here. I had not seen any of this, I had not seen the minutes, and I had not seen all these proposals.
Correct.
I, for one, do not feel comfortable and am not prepared to go forward. We can discuss them if you want, but I'm not prepared for us to take any action. So, with that said, I'll hear from the members.
And that was placed on the agenda. The wording should have been more so to determine how y'all wanted to proceed and to give you all time to come back and give us direction how you wanted, the order you wanted to do it, so we could bring you back information and whatever you would need. So that was the intention, was that you would take this home and review it.
What I'd like to do is table this item, and I don't know if it'd be proper, but I don't feel comfortable having to post a notice of the meeting and an agenda without specifically mentioning some of these items. I would like to sort of break them down and limit a certain number that we're going to discuss and put it on the agenda so that there is no issue, and it's open to the public to come and make a comment on those items. Because if it's too large, it's unmanageable. And so I'll probably want to meet with legal and come up with the items that we can post under the open meetings law, giving notice to everyone as required by law, and then be limited to discuss those matters. And Mr. Cisneros, if you feel, or any other member feels that there's something that you want on the agenda, we can certainly discuss it and put it on there. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to table item number 6.
So moved. I'll second it.
Second, yeah.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Well, no discussion and a motion to table, if I remember I'll have to defer to the expert from Solid Inslee Training, Robert's Rules of Order.
Correct.
And you know somebody that also knows all those rules.
No discussion.
So with that said, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
So that takes care of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned until next we meet, which will be on the third, the third Wednesday of the month in July.
What date is that?
What date is the third Wednesday?
Oh, we know, look at
I think they're referring to.
July 24th.
24th.
We're saying the 3rd of July.
They said July
Well,
24th.
I'm sorry, July 17th.
17th.
July 17th. July 17th.
1, 2, 3.
Bueno, a ver,
Third is the second.
Sencilla.
Más preparado.
And this will be your chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Oye, I think it was the right time, porque
Yes,
no vino.
yes, yes.